So the last time that we sat here, well, the time before that, I was telling you that I was pregnant.
Mm-hmm.
And in December, we did our gender reveal privately on Christmas morning. And we had the gender in an envelope when we opened it. And so that was our previous video. And then things got crazy with, just preparing for a baby. And we revealed that we were going to have a girl, and we were just so completely shocked because we did not expect that at all.
Not at all.
But it ended up just being the best blessing possible.
Truly.
So on April 29th, 2023, we welcomed our baby girl, and her name is Asa James, and she's amazing. She's sleeping right now, so who knows if she'll wake up or not. But yeah, her entrance into the world was unexpected and a little bit panicky. Like,
Traumatic?
he's traumatized, only slightly.
Slightly.
So basically what happened was we knew since like February and March that Asa was Breech, and we were trying to do whatever we could to turn her, but none of the methods worked. So it ended up being that we were going to have to schedule a C-section, which at first I wasn't happy about that, but through prayer and time I kind of got adjusted to the idea, and then we were both kind of looking forward to it because it was going to be like, well, we know she's coming, we know the birth date, we're just going to walk in the morning, get to play music in the OR, and then just like welcome our girl, and it'll be really calm and chill, which is what I wanted more than anything. Okay, well, the baby had other plans because on April 29th, so this was a Friday, I'd been off work for a week and was doing what I could to just get ready. I had to go get my driver's license photo retaken because it was expired. I wanted to prep all her cupboards and closet and stuff. I wanted to make sure that we were settled and then also prepare food. So and it ended up being that I'd left everything to the last minute, of course, and was preparing the frozen meals for us on the Friday.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought... The 28th. And I thought I had 6 more days, because the baby was supposed to be born on May 4th. That was her scheduled...
delivery date.
Yes, that was the elective C-section scheduled for. And so on Friday, I was like, I'm gonna go get a haircut. I'm gonna prep some frozen meals, and I'm doing the cooking in the kitchen. He's working. He's got 1 week left of work, and I'm feeling a little off. I'm feeling tightening that I haven't really felt before. Even though everything always feels so similar, it's really hard to distinguish what's new and what's just regular or what's just a common pregnancy symptom that you haven't felt before. So I'm texting my friend, I'm I really hope I'm not going into labor, LOL. I kind of just want her to stay in there for 5 more days because I don't want it to be an emergency C-section, because the policy is that they're not going to deliver her vaginally if she's breech. So I knew if I go into labor, I'm going to have to go to the hospital and they're going to rush me into the OR. So anyways, I'm realizing that these feel more like cramps or contractions, and they're a little bit bizarre. And I'm telling Brandon I'm a little bit worried, so I said I'm not going to go get a haircut, I don't feel up to it, I kind of feel sick, I'm just going to go lie down. So I napped, and I'm glad I did. By the evening time, the cramps had picked up, and they were kind of all over the place. So one would last a few minutes and be kind of strong, and then it would go away for 20 minutes, and then it would come back for a couple minutes, and then go away for 6 minutes. And it stayed like that through the entire evening. But because it was consistent and frequent, even though it was really disorganized, I knew that this was early labor, even though it didn't necessarily mean that the baby was coming right now.
Right, it could take up to a few days still from that point.
So I did what they advised us to do, and I was also really nervous. So I decided I'm going to call the hospital. We're in Canada, so there's a triage number that you can call. So I got a nurse on the line. I told her what I was feeling, and I also emphasize the baby's breech. I have a C-section on Thursday. I just want to make sure this isn't anything to worry about. And she's like, no, it's your first baby, right? This takes forever. If you do have contractions that become 3 to 4 minutes apart, or they're so intense that you can't talk or feel like you can't breathe, call us back. So I said, okay. The only thing that I didn't tell her was that the mucus plug, I'd also lost it. But even Googling that, you don't know when you're going to kind of kick into stronger active labor. You could be having the cramps that I was experiencing. Phone's ringing. You could be having the cramps that I was experiencing. You could lose your mucus plug, and you could still be in early labor for days. So I said to Brandon, like, okay, I'm not worried, but there's a chance she could come sooner. There's also a chance I could unfortunately be experiencing this for the next 5 days, and we could still have this baby on Thursday.
Right.
So we watched a movie, our last movie as single parents. It was Ghost.
Single parents?
Yeah. Our last movie, just us two. We're big movie buffs, and we watched Ghosted with Chris Evans and
Anna de Armas.
yeah, it was a good movie. I'm glad that was kind of like our last one.
Yeah.
I liked it, but the whole movie, like I had my contraction timer going, and every like how often 10 minutes,
Yeah.
I would kind of just like close my eyes. Now they weren't too intense; they felt like just like bad period cramps, and then of course they would get a little bit stronger and then dissipate. So it was totally like tolerable. It was just like slightly painful, slightly uncomfortable, but I was fine. So the movie ended, it was like 10 o'clock. I said, okay, I'm just gonna go to bed. But the one thing I hadn't done yet was show him everything that was in the baby's bag for the hospital. I'd already packed her diaper bag with her diapers, wipes, her blankets, her outfits. And we knew that if I have to go into the hospital at any point, it's gonna be a C-section, so I don't know how mobile I was gonna be. I'm gonna continue. You could be gone for like half an hour. Are you looking at the camera? Huh?
Say hi.
Okay.
Alright.
Ready for take 2?
We're gonna sit in the chair for a little bit, okay? While mommy and daddy film this video, talking about how you came into this world. Uh-oh.
We're back. Had to feed the baby.
Yeah.
Okay, so I left off with giving you the tour of the diaper bag.
Yes.
Okay. The baby's down here, by the way. Hi. What were you thinking when I like just showed you that? Like, were you thinking this is unnecessary, like it's gonna be a few days, or like was anything even running through your mind at that point?
It honestly, like, I don't remember any of that.
You don't remember me showing you the bag?
No. At all.
No, really?
No, not at all.
I was down here on the floor in front of you.
I remember that you did that,
Yeah.
but I don't remember anything.
Oh gosh, wow. Okay.
Because on the day of, it was just like...
That's funny.
Yeah.
Okay. Alright, so, well, I'm glad that I did show you that, because I figured, like, after the surgery, I won't be able to get up, so he's gonna have to be the one going into all of our bags, and that's essentially what happened in the 2 days while we were recovering in the hospital. He was the feet and the hands, and I was just kind of in bed. So, yeah, I showed him the bag, told him where everything was, and I went to bed, and that was 10 o'clock. So I got 8 hours of sleep, and I honestly slept through the whole night. Maybe I tossed and turned like 2 times, but it was kind of like, okay, you're tossing and turning because of the pain, and it felt like, you know, when you have your period and you go to bed and you just haven't taken any painkillers and you're kind of like, I'll sleep through it, but you still feel it, like it wakes you up a couple times. That was it. So I really didn't even know if I was like in full-blown labor, if I was still contracting. And so when I woke up at 6 a.m., I think it was like either 6 or 6:11 something, I literally like look at the clock, gain consciousness, like wondering like, oh, like what's going on with me? And then I felt her kick down, and that was pretty common, but this was like straight down, as if like her foot was like trying to come out. It was just like a really soft kick too, and then the water broke, and it was just like this massive warm gush.
Oh, and the night you went to sleep,
Yeah.
and you're thinking this could happen. So
Yes.
you put towels down in
Yes,
just in case.
just in case.
Smart.
I put a couple towels down, and then you were like, "Don't put the good towel on top."
Yeah.
I was like, as if it's even gonna, like, my water's even gonna break, and then sure enough.
Yeah.
So yes, I slept on towels just in case.
It still soaked through everything. So.
Yeah, it didn't really help, but it would have soaked more if like, it was kind of
For sure, yeah.
So yeah, I feel this gush, warm, and it was like everything. Like it wasn't just a little, it was the whole thing. And I'm like, in my head, I'm kind of like, there's no going back from that. Like I knew, like this is it. And he's dead asleep beside me. So I shake his shoulder awake. I'm like, Brandon, my water broke. And what do you think when you hear that?
Oh, I'm just like panic, like, because I know that, okay, this is now an emergency situation. Like,
Yeah.
we gotta go.
Yeah. So I shake him awake, I tell him that, and all he grunts is like, oh no, as he's like rolling out of bed. And the first thing he said was something like, what do you need? Like, what should I do?
Yeah.
And I told him he had to get the notebook. So we've been attending like online webinars and Zoom classes and like prenatal classes that the hospital hosted. So I had all this information in a notebook, and the notebook was left out here like on my desk or the kitchen table or something. So I'm like, you gotta get that because the number and the extension number for triage is there. So he gets me the notebook, and I call back to triage, and I'm lying in bed and on my phone, and surprisingly I get the exact same nurse that I spoke to the night before, so she was still on her shift. So again, I start with, I've got this breech baby due on like for Thursday, elective C-section, but and she goes, yeah, you called last night, and I'm like, oh great, well my water broke, and she goes, oh good, and says, first baby, right? I go, yeah. And she says, okay, take your time. There's no rush. It's not an emergency. Okay, not an emergency. She says, shower and we'll see you soon. So I'm like, okay. Like I took her serious because they always say the first baby comes so slowly, like take your time. And I also like did not want to be panicking. The whole time, like even when I went to bed, I wasn't nervous. I was like, if this happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. And for some reason I was just like really calm, and that is definitely like the peace of God. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna shower. And I told him too, I said, I'm fine, but the only thing I'm scared about is when these contractions are gonna pick up. I know it's gonna be painful. And I really wasn't contracting yet, but by the time I got out of the shower, maybe like 10-15 minutes later, they had hit, and they were pretty strong enough to like stop me and make sure that like I had to breathe through them. And that whole time he's getting ready, and it still took him like probably
I was loading the car, like everything that we had in there. So we had the stroller, putting in the car seat. The base was already in, but just like putting the car seat in.
Yeah.
And then all the other bags and stuff that we had packed. We had like your bag, my bag, like all of their stuff that we needed. We had a whole bunch of snacks and things because we didn't know how long we were going to be there.
He had to go down like 11 flights on the elevator, back and forth, and I think he went like 4 or 5 times.
I'm not sure. I just kept going.
Yeah.
Somehow I made it work.
The whole time I'm like trying to get ready, right? So the water helped, of course, but it couldn't stay in there forever. And then as soon as I got out, I'm like, oh, this is strong. And so I was able to get dressed, and I'm reminding him of like, we need that. And we were also mostly packed, and it still took a really long time.
Yeah,
so
almost an hour.
If you're in a situation, like if you're pregnant and you're thinking about when to pack those bags, pack that stuff early and make sure that it's all ready to go. Like I would even say the last thing you need to grab is your charger, and you're out the door. Like be as packed as possible, because if you're in a situation where you're trying to move quickly, it feels like you're taking forever regardless of how many things you have to grab. So I'm trying to get dressed, and then my OB had advised me to wear compression socks to the surgery, because it helps prevent blood clots. So these things are like the tightest soccer socks you ever saw, and I'm trying to put them on, and I already had trouble before I was in labor. Now I'm in labor, and I can't lean forward because of the big belly and the pain. So I'm trying to get him to do it. So I'm like hunched over the bed every time I contract, and he's trying to put these socks on. It took us like 15 minutes, and every time I would have a contraction, I'm like kicking him away, and I'm like, I gotta stop. Yeah, that was probably one of the worst parts, is that it just felt like it was taking forever, and I know he was frustrated and scared, and I'm just like, I want this over with, like, put these damn socks on, let's go. And then also I knew that with the socks it was going to be like way too hot if I wore pants. Now it's 6 a.m. in the morning, and it was end of April, so it was still pretty cool out, especially that week. It was like it was a very rainy day. So I decided to wear shorts and a t-shirt and a sweater, and I'm glad I did that because I would have been overheating, but the trouble was that because it was cool out, that also kind of negatively affected me. Anyway, so we took a towel down so I could sit on it. We went down to the car. You helped me in. And then I contracted a few times on the way. Now we live like 5 minutes away from the hospital. We can see it from our window here. So it wasn't a long drive, thankfully, but I was still like arching my back in the car with those contractions. And then when we got there, were you panicked at all when you were driving?
No.
No? I wasn't. I was just like, I want to.
Like, we gotta get there. Like,
Yeah.
Let's go.
Yeah. I just wanted to get there because I'm like, the second I get there, the pain's gonna stop, because I know they're just gonna wheel me into surgery, and then they're gonna numb me and I'll be fine. So we get there, and he asked, do you want me to drive up front and drop you off? Like, he really wanted to do that, but I knew he was going to have to leave me because he can't just leave his car parked on the side of the curb.
Yeah.
So I'm like, no, go to the parking garage. And it's, what, like 100 meters from the doors? But, yeah, when you're in labor, no. So we park, and it was cold. It was really windy, really cold, and we're walking, and I'm having a contraction. So for me, that was one of the worst parts because, yeah, it just felt endless, and I'm like, I just want to get inside. This is brutal. I think the cold was the worst part of it. We get inside, and they're on the 4th floor, and I thought, you can just take the elevator up. You have to get buzzed in.
They answered right away, though.
They did, but I remember you being like, my wife's in labor.
Yeah.
I was like, please open the doors. So we get in the elevator, we go up. They took my information while I'm like contracting again. And I asked the nurse, I said, how long until I get into the surgery? And she said, well, it depends on some things, like the last time you ate and how far along you are. So I'm like, okay. We get into the triage room, so where they check you, and I have this like older Eastern European nurse who, I don't know, I guess she kind of did have an attitude. I feel like the woman I talked to on the phone also had an attitude, and I really did think they were the same person too. And she said, later I asked her, and she said, no, I wasn't on the phone. But we get in there, and she wants you on the bed because they have to monitor the strength and frequency of your contractions and the heart rate of the baby. And all the labor was in my back, so that's why I was arching my back in the car. It was like hardly in the front; it was really strong in the back. So I did not want to be like lying down. I wanted to be kind of like on my knees, facing forward, but they wouldn't let me do it. So once I got on the bed, like that's when it really felt like brutal. And I'm like holding onto the bed frame like this behind me, bless you, and just like writhing in pain on the bed. And the contractions at this point were, I was timing them since I woke up and got out of the shower, and they were lasting for about a minute and a half. The peak would be for a minute, and then they were, I would say, between 2 and 4 minutes apart, which that's usually the sign that you have to get to the hospital. So yeah, like we were going at the right time, but she still had told me on the phone, like, it's your first baby, it's going to take a while, so you don't have to rush. But when we got there, she checked me, she did all the IVs, and she checked me and was kind of like shocked. She goes, you're 6 to 7 centimeters. And at that point I was floored. I did not expect that. I thought I'm still in early labor, because in my head I'm just like, this is just going to become like pain that you can't even explain. Like, it's going to be the worst thing I ever felt. So regardless of how strong it got, I'm like, it's just going to get worse, it's just going to get worse. So when she told me I was 6 to 7 centimeters, my brain flashes back to all those webinars and is like, active labor. So I'm like, I said to him and her, I go, I'm in active labor right now without any pain meds. I was like pretty proud of myself. But I was in that bed for how long? Like, half hour?
15. No, I don't even think you're in there. Maybe 20 minutes.
20 minutes. The nurse after that realizes, like, okay, this is a situation. So she's trying to, like, round up everyone. She's calling down to, like, the ER, telling them she needs people to scrub in. She's trying to get the OBs together. At one point, one OB, a guy, checks in, and he's like, hi, I'm the OB, I'll be doing the procedure. And then I ended up having a woman do it instead. So that was, and I think that guy was still in the room. It was pretty...
Yeah, they had 2 of them.
Yeah? Yeah, his name wasn't on the paperwork, but... So there's people coming in, he's just like, okay, we're gonna like get you prepped, we're gonna start. And I'm just like, thank you, because in my head I'm like, the faster they get me in there, the faster this pain stops. Right. So that's all I was thinking about. And then she kept calling people and saying like, she's active, I need people up here, I need someone to cover triage while I'm in there, or whatever. So that took a while, and then is that the point where you realized like this was really serious?
Well, I think even before that.
Yeah.
Once you started calling people, I can sense the panic in her voice, the nurse.
Yeah.
And she knew that like we have to go like right now, so she's trying to get people up there so they can bring you in.
Yeah. So after that, they were finally set up, and she's like, okay, we're gonna walk, which I thought was so ridiculous. I never saw a wheelchair the entire time that I was at this hospital.
That's actually true. I didn't think about that.
Yeah. So they made me walk, okay? I'm like, all right, well, there's kind of a mess behind because like your water just keeps leaking. So she picked up my IV. She's like, it's okay, let's go. So we walked down, like just across the hallway to a set of double doors, and then I think like down, like she turned me right or left or something, I don't know. And then I walked in. And so this is where I left you. I don't even remember if we said goodbye or...
We did.
Yeah?
Yeah, but you were just like, gone.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're like, I gotta go.
Sorry. So, I'll tell my perspective in the OR, and
Sure.
you tell yours being kind of left behind.
Sure.
Like the dad in all the dramatic movies.
Yeah.
So I walked in and there were some staff already in there, more came later. They were just kind of like trying to set things up. They propped me against the bed, so I'm just like kind of like standing back against it. And then the anesthesiologist, this guy named Andrew, this really like tall, skinny guy, came over. He introduced himself. It was him and one other anesthesiologist. So he was in the front. He's like, I'm going to be monitoring everything. And then there was the guy in the back. So I'm talking to them, and I was like really calm, but I wanted to like keep the communication open just so I could feel better and know what they were doing. Bless you. So he started like numbing me, and I said like, you're numbing me first, right? He goes, yep. And then he gave me the spinal tap, and a lot of people say that this is the worst part of the C-section, but I barely felt it, like it you know, a prick and nothing. So at this point too, I just said to the guy, because they want you to curve your spine forward even if you're contracting, and I said, can I just lean against you, because I was so done at this point. And he's like, yeah, that's easier for me because then I can control you better. So I just like slumped against this guy. I had no shame. I did not care anymore. So they administered it, and then I'm telling them what was happening, even though they didn't ask me to. So I started feeling like these like sudden jolts like into my legs. It wasn't painful or anything. It was just like, yeah. And I'm telling them, and like my legs kind of twitching, it's sharp, and they're like, yep, that's normal. But it still took like a few minutes for it to fully numb me. And so they reclined me on the bed, laid me down, and they're asking me like, can you feel this? Can you feel that? And I said, I can feel it, but it's not like too severe. At the same time, the OB was checking me. She introduced herself. She starts checking me, and she goes, you're 10 centimeters. The baby's feet are coming out of your vagina. Whatever you do, don't push. And she said it with like a lot more urgency than that. Like I think they were all kind of shocked that the baby was coming this quickly. But this is a very similar story to what happened when I was born with my mom. I was also breech. They realized while she was in labor that I was breech, and my feet were also coming out very quickly. So thankfully, my mom didn't have to have a C-section. They were able to deliver me. But anyways, when I heard the OB say that, I wasn't surprised. I'm like, yeah, I've heard this story like a million times, so okay. No one believed me when I told you guys baby was breech, but fine. You know what I mean? They didn't believe that like it was an urgent situation until I got there. So of course. So I'm like, well, I don't have the urge to push. And by that point, they're like, okay, we're starting. So they had the curtain up, and I was asking for you. I was saying, like, you're going to bring my husband in, right? Because I did not want them to, like, be so panicked that they forgot you.
Right.
And they were like, and Andrew was like, yep, he's coming, because the guy was, like, near my head. He's like, they're just starting, and then he was kind of narrating it for us at the beginning, like, to me, like, saying, like, they started cutting you open, and then later on, like, the baby's almost out. So, yeah, that was kind of it for me.
Yeah, on my end, after she left me, they led me into a room, which is like a small area for recovery for right after you had a baby. And I was in there by myself. There was no one else in there. And I'm just like, they gave me stuff to put, they gave me scrubs to put on, so I'm like putting on the scrubs, whatever. And I'm just in there by myself, and I'm walking up and down, and I'm just like praying, like, oh God, like, because like let everything go well, let Brooke be okay, let Asa be okay, and about, I think in total maybe I waited maybe like 10 minutes or so. Then one of the nurses came and got me and came in the room, and then I sat right beside her head, and they had already started the surgery and everything. And then from the time I got in, I think maybe about 10-15 minutes later is when Asa was like born.
Yeah.
Technically.
The only time that I maybe got like a twinge nervous was when she told me like how fast the baby was coming out, and when she was like, don't push. That's when like in my head I was just praying like, God, just let her be okay, because I knew like, okay, like it's serious, but I'm used to, like, I'm familiar with this story, so I know it'll be okay. Right. So yeah, you came in, and I don't remember if you said anything to me or what. Were you holding my hand?
Probably. I don't remember.
Yes, it took a little bit. Andrew was like, yeah, the baby's almost out. And I could, because she was so low, I think part of her lower body was kind of under my pelvic bone already. Bless you. Lots of sneezes. So I could feel them wrestling her out. and everything else was numb. That part wasn't painful. Like some people describe it as the baby being born as the harder part, but for me it was the after. So I remember her being born, and she gave 2 little cries, wah, wah, and that was it. Like I thought she was gonna come out screaming because she was upset. She was like really chill.
And all the nurses were cooing at her, and they're like, "Oh, she's so photogenic." Like,
yeah. That's what she said to you when she handed you the baby.
Yeah.
She's so photogenic. But do you remember what you said to me right when she was born?
No.
Once she gave those 2 cries, you said, "She's here, she's okay," and I think you were like squeezing my shoulder a little bit. And I thought too, like I would burst into tears or something, but I was just like, happy, relieved. But yeah, so they were cooing at her while they were like cleaning her up at the warming station, and then you went over to take the picture of her held up against. I'll put it here. Her held up against the monitor that says the weight and the time and whatever.
Her height, I think.
Height?
No, weight and time.
Weight and time.
Yeah.
And so you were gone for a minute, and then you came back with her. And I don't remember when the pain started, but it was shortly after that. They took a picture of us. We asked them.
So before that, what happened? Well, when they called me over to see her, and then I saw her, and then they sent me back to go sit down. And when I was walking back is when I saw her open on the table, like completely open, like blood everywhere. You know what I mean? And immediately my head is like, nope, like just block it out, like just wipe it from my memory. I can't even like think about that at all. So I just like walked right beside her, and then a couple minutes later is when they actually brought her to me and put her in my arms, and that's when I held her next to Brooke as they were stitching Brooke up.
Yes, so I was trying to. I think at that point I was already like it was them stitching me up. I could feel a lot of it.
Yeah.
So I was trying to talk to her. To kind of distract myself, like I wanted to see her. They don't let you do skin to skin with the mother or the father in the OR at our hospital, so he had to hold her the whole time next to me. But I tried to talk to her, and she did. Like she turned her head to my voice, which was crazy.
Yeah, she recognized your voice right away.
Yeah, and so I was like, just like trying to be really confident, like, "Hi, Asa, like mommy's here, I love you," stuff like that. But it was really more for me to distract myself and like give her reassurance too, right? Like she's just been pulled away from her warm cocoon. So, for reasons I don't really know, the recovery was really hard for me while they were stitching me up. I could feel them like, it felt like they were like tugging my muscles together and then stitching them. Yeah. It wasn't a sharp pain, because imagine like if someone was stitching your internal organs, like how painful that would be. It wasn't like that, but it was just so much pressure, so much intensity down there, and so much discomfort because I could feel them like invading me, right? So it was so bad. It was like almost as painful as the contractions, if not even, but just like a different kind of pain. I could feel them like sponging me up, like grabbing me and putting me back together, and it was just like constant, like almost like a tugging. It felt like a very like severe tugging, and so the whole time I'm like moaning in pain on the table, to the point where Andrew kept having to like up my dosage of pain meds. And he's telling me, like, I don't want to keep giving you stuff because you're going to be too drowsy for the baby. And I was trying to, like, really be brave. And I'm like, okay,
right, you were doing a great job.
I'm sucking it up, right? And he's like, okay, well, I don't want to torture you. And that's when he gave me morphine and fentanyl. So I was pretty drugged up. And he was right. I did get drowsy after that. I, like, passed out, like you said, for a couple minutes there because I was just, like, fading in and out of sleep.
Yeah.
Finally, they were done. And from there, they took her, they wrapped her up in a blanket, and they put her between my legs on the gurney, right?
That's when we were leaving, yeah.
Yeah, and then they wheeled both of us out into the hallway, and then someone was cleaning out the last room available because someone had just been in there and left. So we waited in the hallway for, to me it felt like 15 minutes, but I know I slept a little bit.
No, it was like 15 minutes.
You told me earlier it was half an hour.
Was it half an hour?
That's what you told me.
Oh, it might have been half an hour.
We were in the hallway for a little bit. And then they wheeled us in, and then from there, they made me, like, shuttle myself onto the bed. So it was like, put your shoulders, put your butt, put your legs, and then so I'm like this onto the bed. And then from there, they put her in her cot. She was sleeping, and you had to go get all the stuff, so you just left us there for a while. So I was, like, sleeping and waking
you
up.
were both sleeping and went to get everything. Yeah,
and then I have a distinct, clear memory of you coming in with a stroller just, like, packed to the nines with all the stuff on top of it.
Oh, yeah, I made one trip
Yeah.
And I put everything in the stroller.
That's
and I got it up there.
mom instinct number one there. Because I told him, I'm like, do you want to bring the stroller? That way you don't have to like make multiple trips. Because this other YouTube couple that I watched, the dad just came in with a wagon stacked full of stuff.
Yeah.
And so that's another tip. If you're going to the hospital, bring a wagon or a stroller and just put everything in there.
Everything. Makes your life easier.
Yeah. Even leaving it was nice to have that. So, yeah. And then after that, my parents came. Oh yeah, texting my mom.
Oh yeah.
That's a whole thing.
Yeah, so when we got to the hospital, right?
Yeah.
When we got to the hospital.
In triage, I remember you texting her.
Yeah. I texted Brooke's mom, my mother, my father. Texted in the same text.
Yeah.
Which was the text was Brooke went into labor and we're at the hospital, something like that.
Yeah.
Oh. And everyone was sleeping, so nobody got the text until later.
Yeah.
'Cause it was Saturday morning. I think my dad was the first one to respond. And
keep talking. I'm here.
when your mom finally, she had been cleaning the house, your mom, and so when she finally looked at her phone and saw the text, it was Asa had already been born at that point.
Yeah.
And we were a couple minutes away from being back in triage, not triage, sorry, the recovery room, and she had replied, and I can't remember what she said. She was just like, oh no, like I hope everything's okay or something like that.
Well, she had told me. She had told me that when she got the first text, she like collapsed on the floor because and cried because she knew like I was in a lot of pain.
Oh, right.
If I was in labor, that meant I was in labor. And then she cried even more when she got the text 5 minutes later that everything was okay.
Yeah, because she had responded, and it was like not even 5 minutes later, I texted back saying like, baby's born, Brooke is okay, baby's okay, everything's good.
Yeah. So yeah, that was the story. We were both okay, thank God. Recovery was the easiest part of all of this, honestly. I think recovery was easier than pregnancy, but I know that's not the case for everyone, so I'm very grateful for that.
Yeah.
Her heart rate and everything was fine the entire time, so even though it was an urgent situation, like we were both okay, and that's what mattered. So it was hard, I think, more on him than me, just because I was so focused on just getting out of the situation, whereas he was the one experiencing it and seeing that we were potentially in jeopardy.
Yeah.
But overall, I would say it was a positive birth story. Next time I'm going to be prepared for the baby to come early because that seems to run in my family.
And I'm going to have that trunk packed like beforehand.
Yeah, the minute I tell you I'm pregnant, it's going to be like, I got to pack the bags.
Yeah.
Yeah. So thanks for watching. Hopefully more videos to come in the future with baby and family stuff.
Yes.
And we'll see you next time.
Don't forget, you're meant to be here.